The final frame fades to black, but the ringing in our ears remains, leaving us with the terrifying realization that Jamie Fraser is officially a hunted man. The episode culminates in a sequence so tense it practically suffocates the viewer, stripping away the brief illusion of safety the Frasers fought so hard to establish. Throughout the season, we have watched the American Revolution creep closer to Fraser's Ridge, but episode 10 forces the war right onto their doorstep in the most personal way possible. It begins with the arrival of a tight-lipped British courier, his uniform caked in mud, bearing a parchment that carries the weight of a guillotine. When Lord John Grey's warnings finally manifest into a physical document, the reality of Jamie's treason against the king becomes an inescapable death sentence. The brilliance of this ending lies in how it subverts our expectations. We expected a grand battle, but instead we are given a quiet, devastating piece of paper that changes the trajectory of the entire series. Claire's face turns an ashen white as she reads the formal decree, her medical and historical knowledge failing to provide a loophole for once. The script writers have masterfully dialed up the stakes, making it clear that no one, not even the legendary Jamie Fraser, is safe from the machinery of war. The music swells into a melancholic, frantic rhythm as Jamie looks out over his land, realizing that his past allegiances have finally caught up with him. This isn't just a political move by the crown, it is a personal vendetta meant to crush the spirit of the rebellion in the backcountry by eliminating its most influential leader. The atmosphere is thick with dread, and the closing shots emphasize the isolation of the ridge, turning their sanctuary into a beautiful cage. We are left staring at the screen, heart pounding, forced to confront the very real possibility that Jamie's time has run out. The narrative threads of family, loyalty, and historical inevitability collide in this single moment, setting the stage for a catastrophic finale. Every character's future is instantly rewritten by this decree, pushing Ian, Brianna, and Roger into a desperate scramble to protect the man who has always been their protector. The sheer suspense of the scene comes from what is left unsaid, the silent understanding between Jamie and Claire that the final battle isn't on a distant field, but right here, for his very life. It is a masterclass in dramatic tension, ensuring that every single viewer is left desperately craving answers. To truly understand the sheer panic of this death warrant, we have to look closely at the mastermind pulling the strings from the shadows, because this isn't a random act of wartime bureaucracy. The script deliberately leaves clues that point to a highly personal vendetta, one that aims to strike Jamie Fraser exactly where he is most vulnerable. For years, Jamie has walked a razor-thin tightrope between his loyalty to his people and his necessary deceptions with the British crown. But in episode 10, that tightrope is violently snapped by an enemy who knows his history, his weaknesses, and his deep-seated devotion to Fraser's Ridge. The psychological weight of this document is heavier than any physical threat Jamie has ever faced because it effectively turns his own home into a trap. Every tenant he has protected, every acre of land he has bled for, and every family member he holds dear is now a potential target by association. The writer's brilliant use of atmospheric tension highlights Jamie's sudden realization that his legendary status among the colonists is exactly what has doomed him. He is no longer just a rebel soldier, he is a symbol of resistance that the British military believes must be publicly and brutally extinguished to break the spirit of the backcountry. As the realization settles over the ridge, the dynamic between the characters shifts from cautious preparation to absolute chaotic survival mode. We see a rare flicker of vulnerability in Jamie's eyes, a stark contrast to the fierce, unyielding warrior we have known for 8 seasons, and it is utterly terrifying for the audience. The script carefully builds this dread by showing how the news ripples through the household, turning a quiet evening into a frantic war room. Young Ian's immediate fierce instinct to fight reminds us of the high cost of this conflict, as he prepares to spill blood to protect his uncle. Meanwhile, the visual storytelling emphasizes the crushing weight of the crown's authority, contrasting the raw, natural beauty of the North Carolina wilderness with the cold, rigid tyranny of British law. It becomes chillingly clear that the war is no longer a distant political abstract. It is a living, breathing monster that has explicitly marked Jamie Fraser for death. And the countdown to his execution has officially begun. Behind every great man is a brilliant woman, but in this devastating moment, Claire Fraser's greatest weapon, her knowledge of the future, becomes her ultimate curse. For seasons, Claire's understanding of the 20th century historical timeline has acted as a lighthouse, guiding the Frasers through the chaotic, stormy waters of the past. She knew who would win the major battles, which political figures would fall, and how the American Revolution would ultimately reshape the world. But as she stares down at the crisp, unforgiving parchment bearing Jamie's name, a suffocating realization sets in. Her history books never mentioned this. The timeline she memorized so carefully in Boston contains a massive, terrifying blind spot when it comes to the intimate, undocumented tragedies of the backcountry. This narrative twist shatters the safety net that the audience and Claire herself have relied on for so long. Suddenly, the future is no longer a guide. It is an unwritten, pitch-black void. The absolute terror in Claire's eyes drives home the suspense of this ending, as she realizes that her medical skills cannot heal a political execution, and her historical foresight cannot predict the next move of a desperate British army. The script masterfully portrays her internal collapse as she tries to find a loophole, a missing piece of information, or a historical footnote that might save her husband, only to find nothing but silence from the history she left behind. This leaves the Frasers completely exposed, stripping away their supernatural advantage and forcing them to play by the brutal, unpredictable rules of the 18th century. The emotional weight of the scene peaks as Claire looks at Jamie, the man she traveled across centuries to be with, realizing that the very history she tried to navigate might be the engine that tears them apart. It forces the audience to confront a harrowing question. If Claire doesn't know what happens next, how can anyone survive? As the immediate shock of the warrant settles, the focus shifts to the devastating ripple effect this decree has on the younger generation of the Fraser family, specifically Brianna and Roger. Throughout this season, their journey has been defined by a painful choice between the safety of the future and the dangerous loyalty of the past. Now, with Jamie's life hanging in the balance, the stakes of that choice are magnified tenfold. The script forces a heartbreaking realization upon Brianna. She did not travel through time just to witness her father's execution. Her modern sensibilities and deep love for Jamie collide in a desperate, frantic need to act, prompting her and Roger to look for any hidden leverage they might possess. They begin to look at their own knowledge of the future not as a passive map, but as a weapon to be used against the British forces. However, this creates an immense, suffocating tension within the family unit, as every move they make to save Jamie could inadvertently alter the timeline and endanger their own children. Roger, who has grown from a mild-mannered historian into a resilient leader in his own right, faces a profound moral and spiritual crisis. He must decide how far he is willing to go and how much blood he is willing to sanction, to alter a fate that seems written in stone. The dialogue in these scenes is sharp, fast-paced, and loaded with subtext, reflecting the frantic ticking of the clock as the British army closes in. The writer's brilliant staging shows the younger Frasers whispering in the shadows of the cabin, their modern perspectives clashing with the harsh realities of the 18th century war. This section elevates the suspense by shifting the narrative from a story of simple survival to a complex, high-stakes game of historical chess. The audience is left breathless as Brianna and Roger realize that saving Jamie might require them to make a sacrifice so great it could shatter the family forever, leaving us to wonder if the price of his life is more than any of them can afford to pay. The final piece of this tragic puzzle falls into place as we look toward the horizon, where the ultimate clash between absolute power and untamed loyalty is about to explode. This death warrant is not just a threat to one man, it is the spark that will ignite a wildfire across the entire backcountry, forcing every ally Jamie Fraser has ever made to choose a side. The script leaves us on a razor's edge, showing how the news of Jamie's impending arrest travels like lightning through the hidden networks of the regulators and Cherokee allies. For years, Jamie has built a brotherhood based on honor, blood, and mutual respect. And now, that network is ready to rise up in a desperate, chaotic bid to defy the British Empire. The closing moments of the episode build an unbearable momentum, cutting between the cold, marching boots of the advancing redcoats and the frantic, silent preparations at Fraser's Ridge. We see Ian sharpening his blade, his face hardened by the realization that the time for peace has officially ended. The visual imagery is stark and haunting, contrasting the clinical, legal cruelty of the British decree with the raw, emotional fury of a family pushed to the brink of destruction. The true brilliance of this cliffhanger is that it leaves the audience completely in the dark about who will survive the coming storm. Will Jamie choose to flee, abandoning the land he sacrificed everything to build, or will he stand and fight a battle that history says he cannot win? As the screen fades to black for the final time this season, the lingering image of that blood-red wax seal serves as a terrifying promise of the violence to come. The stage is set for a catastrophic showdown where lines will be crossed, sacrifices will be made, and the Fraser legacy will face its final, most brutal test. Every single viewer is left breathless, trapped in the agonizing suspense of waiting to see if Jamie Fraser can truly outrun a destiny written in blood.